Hi, myself, I'm Ratnabhushan, friend motivator and guide to IAS Sprint, international motivational speaker, leadership trainer, CEO, coach, political strategist, and policy advisor. Welcome to ASG. ASG believe in quality, commitment, and success. Never outshine the master. Never outshine the master. Always make those who above you feel comfortably superior. In your desire to please and impress them, do not go too far in displaying your talents, or you might accomplish the opposite, inspire fear, insecurity. Make your master appear more brilliant. Make your master more brilliant than they are, and you will attain the heights of power. This is the quote I've taken from the book 48 Laws of Power, written by Robert Greene. The most important news of today's source is the Hindu newspaper. Journalists for the US media face possible expulsion from China. It comes amid Washington targeting of Chinese reporters. China is delaying the renewal of the press cards for at least 5 journalists working at US media outlets. An organization of the foreign correspondents said on the Monday, making their vulnerable to expulsion in the apparent redistributions of for Washington targeting of China's reporter working in the United States. China's foreign minister responded by saying applications for renewal were being processed, and those reporters involved would not have their lives in the China affected in any way. If the US government truly cares about American journalists, it should extend visas for all the Chinese journalists as soon as possible, instead of taking journalists from the two countries as hostage from the certain political interest, Mr. Jato told reporters. The next news is UK threatens to undercut Brexit Pact. Government planning legislation to override parts of the withdrawal agreement. EU registered protests. Britain Churchill's divorce from the EU veered into fresh crisis on Monday after London signaled it could undermine the exit agreement with the Brussels unless free trade terms are agreed by the next month. In yet another twist to the 4-year saga since Britain voted narrowly to quit the EU, Prime Minister Boris Johnson's government was reportedly planning new legislation to override parts of the Brexit withdrawal agreement it signed in January that could potentially jeopardize the whole treaty and create frictions in a British-ruled Northern Ireland, where special arrangements had been made to avoid hard border with Ireland to the south that could be detrimental to a peace agreement. Britain said it would honor the deal and was offering clarification to avoid any future legal difficulties. But the Financial Times newspaper cited that the people saying that a proposed internal market bill was expected to eliminate the legal powers of the parts of the withdrawal of agreement in areas including state and Northern Ireland. Tumultuous exit. EU diplomats were aghast, cautioning that such a step leaked on the eve of the new talks in London would tarnish Britain's global prestige and heighten chances of a tumultuous disentangling from the bloc on December 31st. The next news is Tibetan soldiers' funeral seen as Delhi's signal to Beijing. Tibetan soldiers' funeral seen as Delhi's signal to Beijing. In sharp signal of the shift in the government of India's policy and publicly acknowledging 58-year-old Special Frontier Force SFF Special Frontier Force BJP General Secretary Ram Madhav and BJP MP Ladakh Jamgyal Tesring Namagyal attempted the funeral of company leader Nema Tenzin, who military sources said was killed in an accidental mine blast during the patrolling in Ladakh last week. The funeral of Tenzin, who belongs to the Cholgam Sagar Tibetan refugee settlement outside Leh, was held on Monday. Soldiers wearing the SFF uniform gave the last salute, and Mr. Madhav led the wreath chants of the Bharat Mata Ki Jai, long life India, long life India, long life India, long life India, and Tibet Desh Ki Jai, Tibet Desh Ki Jai, long life the Tibet nation, long life the Tibet nation, along with the slogan of the Vikas Regiment as the 7 battalions or establishment of 222 are known, were raised after the bugle was played at the funeral. Tweet and delete. Attended the funeral SFF company leader Nama Tenjin, a Tibetan who led his life protecting our borders in Ladakh Road. Mr. Madhav in a tweet on Monday, adding, "Let the sacrifices of such valiant soldiers bring peace along the Indo-Tibetan border. That will be real a tribute to all martyrs." The tweet was later deleted. The Ministry of External Affairs and the Ministry of Defense declined to comment on the funeral. A senior MEA official told The Hindu that Mr. Madhav does not represent the government, adding that as there had been no official communication, only media reporters of the funeral. It did not signify a change in the government's position. The presence of Madhav, a senior leader of the ruling party, at the funeral and the public acknowledgements of SFF role in operations along the line of control LAC was seen. Many commentators suggest strong message by New Delhi to Beijing at a time the Indian and Chinese forces are engaged in 4-month standoff along the LAC in Ladakh, and 3 days before External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar is due to meet his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi in Moscow. The next most important news is Empower the Youth First. Empower the Youth First. A focus on India's youth is the first step toward the self-reliance. On independence, the Prime Minister belabored his government's leitmotif of an Atmanirbhar Bharat. In today's India, we can achieve the goal of self-reliance only if we enhance our citizen capabilities. Given our demographic composition, we must begin by empowering our youth. Are we investing in our youth? In 2014 National Youth Policy (NYA) defined youth as a persons between 15 to 29 years. This cohort accounted for 27.5% of the population. Then, according to NYP report, the central government spends about 2,710 per youth on education, skill development, employment, healthcare, and food subsidy. The total amount is pegged at more than 90,000 crore. Assuming that the state spends an equal amount, the total investment in our youth would be under 1% of GDP. 1% of GDP, hardly commensurate with their population and potential. A World Bank report pegged the project cost of not investing in children and youth 4% of GDP every year. Of this, the cost of unemployment account for the 0.6% as 2017 youth participation in India's labor force as 38.3%, drawing from the 2018 State of the Working India report. We peg the youth unemployment rate to be at least 18.3%, 3.47 crore youths. About 30% of youth fall under the neither in employment nor in education category, and 33% of India's skilled youth are unemployed. 33% of India's skilled youth are unemployed. Further, around 50 lakh youth are expected to be entering the workforce annually following the COVID-19 lockdown. The CMI estimated a loss of 14 crore jobs in the April alone, of which 2.7 crore concerned with the youth. These numbers, coupled with the impending grim implications of the pandemic, have landed us in the uncharted, turbulent economic waters. China LAC aggression, India's obfuscation. There are important reasons for a government confusing claims, political branding, and the blurring of the facts. For a political party that never misses out even a remote opportunity to indulge in aggressive military talk. The last important topic is government intervention in education policies should be minimal. Government intervention in education policies should be minimal. People's doubts must be addressed before NEP implementation, Modi said. The government intervention in education policies should be minimal, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said on Monday, emphasizing that the policy belonged to the whole country rather than to any particular government in power. Mr. Modi was addressing the inaugural session of the government's conference on the National Education Policy, which is being attended by a state education minister and vice chancellor. The focus of the conference is on implementation of NEP. The education policy and the education system are important means of the fulfilling the aspirants of the country. The central and the state government as well as local bodies will all have responsibility for the education system. But it is also true that the government's interference or the intervention of education policy should be minimalized. Just as the foreign policy or defense policy are the policies of the country, not of the government, so is the education policy. It belongs to the whole country. The hero noted urging a collective responsibility in implementing the policy. The Prime Minister urged the states to hold consultations with the stakeholders on the implementations of the policy by September 25. When we move towards change, it's natural for the doubts and questions to arise in the people's mind, he said. Hold a discussion. Parents may have discussions about the subject stream flexibility. Teachers may want to know about the curriculum design, and other stakeholders may have been doubts about the availability and the resources needed to implement the NEP. It's important to discuss all the provisions and nitty-gritty of this document. It can only be implemented once all the doubts and questions all in people's mind are addressed, Mr. Modi said. And now some of the important things about polity, about this fact I am taking from the book Lakshmikant, Directive Principle of State Policy. Directive Principle of State Policy. According to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the directive principle of state policy is a novel feature of Indian Constitution. They are enumerated in Part 4 of the Constitution. They can be classified into three broad categories: socialistic, Gandhian, and liberal intellectual. Socialistic, Gandhian, and liberal intellectual. The directive principles are meant for the promoting the ideal of the social and economic democracy. Social and economic democracy. Social and economic democracy. Social and economic democracy. They seek to establish welfare state in India. However, unlike the fundamental right, the directive principles are non-justiciable in nature. That is, they are not forcible by courts for their violation. Yet the Constitution, it declares these principles are fundamental in the governance of the country, and it shall be the duty of a state to apply this principle in making the laws. Hence, they impose a moral obligation on the state authority for their application. But the real force, sanction behind them is a political, that is, public opinion. In the Minriva Mills case, 1980, the Supreme Court held the Indian Constitution is founded on the bedrock of the balance between fundamental rights and the directive principle. Thank you so much.